Wagwan, wagwan. This is a DIY Yachty. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. In this video, I'm working on a 2017 Nissan Rogue. And the issue with this car is it's got a bad rear differential. So I'm jumping into this job. What I'm doing here is draining the oil from the differential, which on this car there really wasn't much oil in there. um, there's supposed to be a periodic service of your oil in the differential um, every so often. This car, the owner has never changed the differential oil ever since she had the car, and she's owned the car for maybe 3 to 4 years. So this is the result of the differential oil never being changed. So basically, it ended up burning up the gears in the diff. So I'm gonna go ahead and swap out this diff with another one. Okay. So jumping into it, what I'm doing here is I am removing the brake, the caliper. Um, I have that removed. And the purpose I'm doing here is the axle has to be removed from the diff on one side, in that way that I can lower the diff down. With the way this car is set up, the axle goes over top of the exhaust pipe on the driver's side, and it basically gets in the way of lowering the differential down to the ground. Okay, I mean I could remove the exhaust pipe, but uh, you stand a chance of breaking the bolts in the exhaust pipe. So this is a more sure bet here to me. Just removing this axle, um, pulling the bolts that hold this rear control arm, and that way I can swing the control arm out. So what I'm doing here is getting the lock pin out of the way. Then I'm going to get the axle nut removed. Yeah, once you get that nut loosened, you're going to have to tap that axle in. Tap it in to get it removed. And the next point, there's a bolt here, or a nut. Get that nut removed. On the front there are two nuts also. You get those removed. And also the drive shaft, get the bolts for the drive shaft removed. And then you have these two straps, which are held in place by 17mm nuts, front and back. Get those removed. And here I'm actually missing some of my footage, so I'm going to try to explain this the best possible. This is the upper control arm, and that is the lower. So I remove the bolts on the outer. You have to make sure to remove the bolts on the outer. If you pull the inner bolts, you're going to throw your alignment off. So I'm only pulling the outer bolts on this arm. That way this arm here that the pointer is on can swing out. Okay, so this is what it looks like after I got the diff out of the car. I actually separated the axles. That way it'll come right out. This is it here. Okay, and you'll see there are some air hoses connected to this diff. And there's actually an electronic connection to the front of the diff also. Okay. All right, so this is the new diff, or the replacement, going back in the car. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the right side of it first. And I couldn't hold the camera while I'm doing this, so sat the camera down, connected it, and then on the left, go ahead and connect the left side up, and I get it back in place. I get my nuts and bolts reconnected. So it looks in the car, and that plug that I said, electronic connection to the front of the diff, I'm going to go ahead and get that reconnected. So this is the axle. This is pretty much what I had to do to take it out. I got all the suspension loose on the outer part of the suspension, which includes the shocks, upper control arm, lower control arm, and this arm that the wheel is connected to, or the wheel mounts to. Okay, so that's the lower control arm there. That's the shock. You can see the shock is taken loose apart. Okay. And this is the plug I was saying that needs to be reconnected. It's an electronic plug. That's a air hose. I'm connecting there. Then this plug has to be reconnected. The drive shaft. There are four bolts on the drive shaft. And once I get these tightened up, go ahead and get your straps retightened. Got my drive shaft back in place and tightened. And I didn't never mention that the sway bar, I also had to take that loose. Okay, on both sides of the car, I took that loose to get that back in place. So basically, I removed the sway bar from the lower control arm, as well as where it's connected to the body of the car. So I just took it loose and had it hanging in the car. Basically, that way the control arms will hang down and I'll have enough room to work. But do remember, if you're doing this job, you only need to pull one side of the control arms and make sure it's the outer bolts on the control arm, and the left side would preferably be the side to pull, being that that exhaust pipe is in the way there. Okay, so this is the differential back in the car, and what I did while I had it out was this is a drain plug and this is a fill plug. So I actually filled this on a level surface and filled it back, with the gear oil, the proper gear oil for this car, while I had it out of the car. That way it'll save you the headache of trying to fill it once you get it back in the car. Okay. So here, again, like I said, I pull the upper and lower control arm. That way, this arm, the trailing arm, will actually, I could maneuver it out. And you can see I have the jack under there. Okay, so that way I can maneuver it out to get the axle in and out, into this spindle or hub. Okay. So I actually lost the footage of me pulling it, but putting it back together should give you a good idea of what I did taking it apart. It's pretty much the same thing in reverse. Okay, so hopefully this video is helpful. I will link parts in the description box below this video. If you need to find parts for your vehicle, I'll link the parts used in this job. Here you see I got all my nuts and bolts back in place. Lower control arm, upper control arm retightened. And like I said, these upper and lower on the outer part doesn't affect the alignment. Okay, if you pull the inner, you're going to throw your alignment off. So definitely only do the outer bolts. Okay, got my upper, lower, and my shock reconnected. This is a diff in the car. That's what it looks like. Getting ready to put my wheel back on, let it down, take it for a test ride. This is DIY Yachty. Hope this video was helpful. Bless up.